It's Beer O'Clock, and this is the Beer O'Clock Show, where every week we sample a selected ale and discuss its various merits. My name is Mark, your friendly beer noob, and joining me, beardier than a wild half-man, half-ape creature running through the Canadian wilderness, is my beer mentor, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Just about recovered from Friday night's efforts now.
You are sporting a very fine face full of whiskers, it has to be said.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the beard club.
It's all about the beard these days.
Also joining us is a special guest and someone also with a beard. Live from a beer shop in London is beer blogger and someone who claimed to be out of beer but is obviously not. Beer blogger and another Mark Kelly. Hello.
How's it going, Mark? And how's it going, Steve? You alright?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you.
Cool. And another beard here, as you can probably see.
Yeah. Very good.
It's a very beardy show this week.
Yeah.
Beardy
is it not a
and
qualification? You have to have one to get on the show, or?
Unfortunately
I think so.
not. No. We
No.
haven't had that many bearded people. It's a shame. So
Maybe we should. It's a prerequisite to get on the show. You've got to have a beard.
maybe. They would have cut out Emma from Crema last week, though.
Yes, true.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you have a blog, and you also work in a beer shop.
The blog is called Mark's Out of Beer. It's a little bit sort of not updated at the moment because I've been busy with one or two other little writing projects that I'm sort of got going on, and they pay money, which the blog doesn't. So I have to sort of prioritize the pay money ones. I work. I sell beer for the beer boutique. So just basically bob around London, being nice to people and hoping they'll buy a beer from me eventually. Usually after a few weeks of grinding them down, they do.
Mustn't be too hard to sell though, surely.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, the beer boutique is quite a relatively new company. It's quite small, so it's really about sort of getting it established and all that as well, and offering good prices, offering a nice service. Spending money in the bars that I'm that I'm selling to. It's always good. Beer sells itself really. If you get a good bar and they're into their beer, then you don't have to do much. Just get them to taste it, and hopefully the rest will follow.
Yeah.
That's the general idea. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we got a very special beer tonight, but before we get to that, Steve, do we have some feedback from our homebrew special from last week? Do you have it?
Yes. We do. We had a few people.
I'm sorry, did I catch you off guard?
Just a little bit, yeah. We had a few people comment on the show that they said they quite enjoyed it, particularly the points of view that were being put across in layman's terms, which I think is what we were maybe trying to get to with some parts of the show, was that when some of the guys were saying, oh, we do this or we do that, or we use this process, it was like, well, what does that actually mean to somebody that doesn't really understand brewing? Tell us what that means and what that's about. So we've had some good feedback. People enjoyed listening to it. A little bit out there for us, obviously. Up until last week we've only done commercially available beers, and last week was all about these beers that these guys had quite literally sweated over producing. But good feedback, and I think it's certainly our intention to maybe repeat the homebrew specials at least once a season now for our loyal followers.
Definitely. Yeah, and that was released on Friday night, that episode, which is also the night of our Camera GB tie-in event called Back in Black. So this was the night of black beers, porters, stouts, what have you. I was late home from work, but I managed to get a couple in. What did you manage to get in, Steve?
Well, this is an interesting story, because obviously for the few weeks running up to it, I was previewing the beers that I was going to drink, and I previewed 4 beers that I was going to drink as part of the evening. However, things went slightly awry halfway through the evening, where I think I drunk the third of the 4 planned beers, and then I started throwing in a couple of jokers that I hadn't planned at all. And then I got to a point where I couldn't decide whether to do the Brewdog Cocoa Psycho, which was the 10% beer, or the Harvestoon Ola Dub, or Ola Do, or whatever it's called, the Ola Do 12 or 16. Somebody suggested that I blend them together.
What?
And I had had enough drink to be easily convinced by that point. So I did. I blended the two together, and the result.
Did you have a swizzle stick?
No. I just kind of poured them sort of at the same time into the glass, just like I was making a shandy sort of thing. I thought it tasted okay. To be honest with you, though, by that point in the evening, I probably would have thought that diesel would have tasted perfectly fine in my glass. It was good. There is a blog up on the website about the whole episode. If you want to have a read, I'm not going to go into it now. But subsequent to say that once I'd finished that mixture, I then finished the 2 half bottles as well. And then, still deciding that wasn't enough, I then cracked a Magic Rock Bearded Lady as well to finish the evening, which was another 10.5% beer, and
Bloody hell.
not strictly black. It was a brown stout.
Oh no.
We did advertise it as stouts, so I think just about got away with that. But needless to say, I was pretty rotten on Saturday morning for a few hours. But I had fun. It was a good evening. Hey.
Cool. The 2 that I got a Black Betty by Beavertown. I don't know if you've had that one, Steve.
No, I haven't. I can't.
It
It's
was
not one I've had.
Gorgeous. It's a black
What was
IPA.
it? Was it a black IPA or?
Yeah. But it had that kind of. Remember that one that we had at that event in London Fields that was kind of salty?
The Wolf's Coat.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was that one, but it was the one that had a slight salty taste to it. That's what the Black Betty had for me.
Oh, okay.
A faint saltiness. And the other one I had was from Harvestoon, the Old Engine Oil, which poured like engine oil.
Yeah, it's very thick. The Harvestoon black beer is very thick.
It was okay for me. A bit too strong for me. Mark, did you join in on the Back in Black thing on Friday?
I didn't know. I was shamefully drinking wine, I think, on that particular night. I've had the Black Betty a couple of times. I really like that one, especially on keg. I got the saltiness too, but mainly got all the sort of tropical kind of fruitiness going through, which is you do want that in a black IPA. My favorite black beer actually is probably Cocoa Psycho. Or at least one of them, from Brewdog. So it was quite difficult to listen to Steve's black beer shandy, we'll call it. It would have been an interesting one, I imagine. He assures us that it's good, but I'm yet to be convinced.
you have to drink quite a lot to get to the point where you think it's a good idea. I think. It did have that typically Brewdog flavour and style to it, and I think what the Harvestoon added to it was it just added kind of more coffee and more richness to it, and that thickness to it as well. It worked. It certainly helped me to sleep on Friday night.
You can't remember what it tasted like, admit it.
Well, as I say, I tried to make some notes at the time, and they're all in the blog that we did. That's up on the website now, which is a complete review of the Back in Black evening that we hosted with Camera GB.
But it's quite an efficient way to get points, isn't it? On Untapped, you've just one beer, and you've got 3 drinks really, because you've got Cocoa Psycho, Oladu, and then Steve's beer shandy too. Which
Cocoa.
Only one person in the world will have checked in, I imagine.
I didn't. I named it. I named it Psycho Do.
So,
and I created a new beer on Untapped and everything. It was brilliant.
superb.
Amazing. Oh, talking about beer, of course we're talking about beer. A week and a bit ago, a little boy called Stephen got on a train and he went all the way to the north of England to meet an even smaller little boy called Doody. So, Steve, you and Doody had a little beery road show a week or so ago.
We did, yes.
You're supposed to have recorded bits and pieces for me. There was going to be a special episode, but as is usual, you drank too much beer and you forgot.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us about your romantic weekend away with Doody?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. We went. Michael and I went up to spend the day with Colin and the team at Buxton Brewery, where we basically had a bit of a brew day with them. So we were actually brewing some of their Axe Edge, which is kind of their flagship beer. It's their flagship IPA that they do, and we also got to meet Connor Murphy as well, who's on Twitter at Like the Murphys, another beer blogger who met us up there for the brew day. So we basically spent the day in the brewery. I actually finally found out how beer was made, and that it doesn't just magically appear in a bottle in my glass and then in my mouth. No,
Madness.
The beer fairies do not bring beer. People actually make it. It's quite shocking, really. But after we'd spent the day brewing, we then headed into Buxton town itself, where Buxton Brewery have recently opened the Buxton Tap House, which is it's essentially their bar that sells all of their beers, and a few other guests. And quite literally, we proceeded to work our way along the taps and try everything that Buxton had on offer that evening, including a very special blend that again was one of a kind. It was a blend of their New Zealand Axe Edge and their Black Rocks IPA that they had called NZ Axe Rocks, and it was only available in the Buxton Tap House that evening. Absolutely stunning black IPA with really tropical sort of fruity notes from the New Zealand hops that were in it. So that was really good. Another highlight from that session as well was a Magic Rock beer that they had on tap, Circus of Sour, which is again, it's one of these sour beers, but it was absolutely lovely. It was lemony and citrusy and just really left a really cleansing feel on the palate. So we worked our way along the taps. Eventually we got asked to leave at about 1:30 in the morning because they did want to actually shut the place up. But we were still in there with one of the brewers just chatting, and it was a really good day actually. And I'd like to thank Colin and Jake for hosting us for the day up at Buxton. It was a good experience, and good to see, in all seriousness, how beer is made, how it becomes this wonderful stuff that we enjoy drinking.
Mm-hmm. And from Buxton, you went on to another very special place.
We did. We went to the place where the magic happens, and I had to resist just tweeting that over and over again. But we went off to Magic Rock in Huddersfield, which is I know a few of our listeners have been there. It's probably the most unassuming place that you'd ever expect for a brewery. It's in a small yard next to a rock dealer, and by all accounts that's how their name came about. But very tiny setup, but also a very modern setup. So where we were at Buxton, it was a very traditional style of brewing. So there were a lot of hoses being attached to different tubs and lots of running around, but the Magic Rock setup, just there was a lot of sort of valves and things that just needed switching. So two completely different styles of brewing. But we spent about an hour or so at Magic Rock with Rich Burhouse, who's the MD up there, who had kindly taken an hour out of what was a family day to come and spend some time with us. So again, thanks to Rich for that. But we got to try some We got had some more Circus of Sour in there, and we had some Cannonball straight out of the keg as well, freshly kegged Cannonball as well, which was absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, quite a nice little road trip that weekend.
Very good, and I hope Dooley was a gentleman and behaved himself.
Yes, he was. He was very, very, very much the gentleman.
Very good. And to round up our little pre-beer chat, we've got our 1,000th follower on Twitter is looming. We're getting ever closer, and we have a little prize to give away, don't we, Stephen?
We do, as always, because we like to celebrate milestones and landmarks and all the rest of it. Again, thanks to Magic Rock for supplying this, but they've given us a bottle of Strongman, which is their 12% barley wine that they recently released, a glass to enjoy it from, and a T-shirt. And that little prize bundle will be going to one lucky listener, one lucky follower when we hit the 1,000 follower mark on Twitter. We'll be employing the random number generator. Probably on next week's show, Mark, we're going to have to fire it up again and bring out the random number generator to select a winner.
Very good, from one of our 1,000+ followers by that point.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, because we're rocketing towards it now.
We are.
Pretty chuffed I'm following you guys on Twitter now because I can easily win it.
Yeah, I'm following us as well. So
and me, it's 1,000 to 1 chance, at least.
You never know.
Better odds than the lottery.
Right, let's get into this week's selected ale. It's one of our American beers. We've had a little American Beer Fest running throughout the season. You can get a list of the American beers that we've got lined up, or we've had lined up, at beeroclockshow.co.uk. The season 3 beer list link at the top of the page, and you can buy some of these beers from Ales by Mail, as well as many other vendors, I'm sure. This one is from a brewery that I've had the pleasure of drinking some beers from before, Sierra Nevada, and it is a barley wine style beer called Bigfoot. Now, Mark, do you know anything about Sierra Nevada?
Well, yeah, I guess so. It's from California, isn't it? The Sierra Nevada mountains. And yeah, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is probably one of the most popular products we have at the Beer Boutique. People recognise it, quite easily these days. And yeah, I remember when we got Bigfoot in, I was pretty excited about it. They're a really good brewer. They're sort of a typical American brewer. Pale Ale is probably the best example of American pale ales you can, or one of the best at least. It's certainly a very typical example. So, it's one of my favorites.
Cool, Steve. What beers have you had from Sierra Nevada?
I've had the standard pale ale. I've had Torpedo.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've had Celebration as well, which is, I think it's kind of their Christmassy early spring hopped beer. Yep. And then I had this year's incarnation of Hoptimum, which is an Imperial IPA, which was very, very hop-tastic. I have to say, it was very, very piney, a very, very dry finish. So I've had a few Sierra Nevadas now, and I've got to say, when I first started getting into the beer, as Mark said, it's a very recognisable label, and a very recognisable brand. But I didn't realise that they did such a range of beers. I only thought they did the pale ale, but they actually do quite the range of beers. Yeah.
The ones I've had are the Ruthless Rye, Celebration, Torpedo Extra, and the Pale Ale. The Pale Ale. That's one of the ones last season I was going on about how I kept avoiding it because I thought the label looked poor quality. So I was avoiding it because I thought no serious beer company can possibly put out a label looking like that.
It's really interesting, like that you thought that, because I actually quite like that label. I don't mind it at all. It's quite it catches your eye a little bit, especially when it's on a shelf full of other American beers.
Yeah, so because it was only last season or last year that I got into real ales, and I saw the label and I thought they look a bit too small. Not knowing that it's the smaller brewers that you really want to get into, because they obviously often have the more interesting beers. Anyway, I've learnt my lesson now. Sierra Nevada, nom nom. So,
I've got to say, mate, having just gone through the arduous process of listening back to all of the shows, the show where we did the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale last year, I think that's where we had our awakening to good beer.
yeah,
Because it was after that we actually, looking back now, since then we've done very few of what we call the supermarket staples since that show. So I think we've got a lot to thank Sierra Nevada for.
absolutely. I've never been disappointed by a Sierra Nevada beer, so we'll see if tonight breaks the curse or if it continues the streak.
It's certainly one of the beers. When I first got into drinking beer, one of the first ones I got into was Sierra Nevada. Along with Goose Island and a few of the sort of gateway beers, like Flying Dog, Doggy Style, and I think they're quite important in that way, because without beers like that, I probably would never have got as much into beer as I have today, or for me at least, anyways.
Yeah.
Probably quite a few other people, especially obviously for you two.
Yeah. So shall we crack this open and see what we think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
I have to say I've been drinking it all day, so I know what it smells and tastes like by now.
Wow, it's an active one. Got a
Yeah.
huge hit on that.
Yeah, definitely. The head's really kind of tan coloured, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
To wait for that to settle down a bit.
that just looks like a really nice beer, actually.
Yeah.
It's got a really lovely deep colour to it. Some really active carbonation. Good head. Like I say, it's slightly off-white colour, which is, I think, just complements the rest of the beer. Piney aromas. You can almost smell the dryness in it as well that I'm expecting that we're gonna get.
Yeah. Kind of like, yeah, that real piney, grassy nose.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of both. There's a lot of the hoppy smell. There's a lot of pininess, but there's also this kind of caramel and toffee that come through as well.
Yes. Yeah.
In equal amounts, which is one of the reasons why I like this beer quite a lot. Is the balance of it. It's very, very good.
It's quite, for me, it's quite reminiscent of the aroma is quite reminiscent of the Bear Republic that we did a couple of weeks ago, the Red Rocket. It's got that sort of aroma to it.
Yeah.
Looks similar as well, so I'm expecting a comment from Mark at some point this evening that suggests it tastes red.
It tastes red.
Yeah.
What does red taste like?
Well, like that beer we had the other night, the Bear Republic.
Like the Red Rocket. Okay.
All right, shall we get into it then?
Yes, let's do this. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh.
Really full on, isn't it? I've got a sort of list of words that I've been making people write down there, sort of one word review of it all day, and by far the most common thing that people have said is full on or full flavored. One guy actually wrote like being punched in the face.
It's very thick.
Yeah.
Very thick tasting.
It's got a very alcoholic feel to it, and I know it sounded so much better in my head.
No, it makes perfect sense.
By that, what I mean, it's like it's almost like drinking wine or spirits rather than beer. The flavour's so strong, the flavour is so full on that you don't really get an instant hit of beer from it. You get more of an instant hit of alcohol from it.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. Like, there's a certain sort of, especially when you've tasted it, maybe not so much in the nose, but there's a really boozy kind of nature to this beer, which I actually really like. It's kind of it's a really good winter kind of warming beer.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's got a very warming mouthfeel to it, and it's very full in the. Well, it's got a very warm aftertaste, and it's very full warm with the mouthfeel. Yeah.
Less time.
Yeah, there's a lingering warmth to it. I'm finding. Very nice.
It is a nice beer. It's not as dry as I was expecting it. I was expecting it to be quite a bit drier than that. It's got a bitter aftertaste to it that's coming through, but you do pick up the piney flavours. You pick up the toffee and the caramel that they come through as you're drinking it. It is a real. I completely agree with what you both said there. It's a complete winter warmer beer. This is one that you could just imagine coming home to in the middle of winter and just cracking this and just letting it engulf you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's
pretty appetizing.
I can really get that kind of toffiness, the tacky toffiness to it. Thick red, warm.
Red.
Thick redness. Thick red alcohol. Brilliant. And that, folks, is why we've got nearly 1,000 followers on Twitter. Because it tastes like thick red alcohol.
They could put that on the label they'll sell them by the crate.
So I'll give you a little bit of background.
Please.
Because I printed some off today. Because I thought you'd struggle, Mark, because there's nothing on the label to...
Yeah, I was looking on the back. It's just ingredients and shit.
Yeah. Okay, so... In their own words, it's brimming with bold flavours of bittersweet malt and heaps of aggressive whole cone Pacific Northwest hops. It was first introduced in the winter of 1983 and has become a cult classic beer that's brewed in the barley wine style. It can be aged like a fine wine, developing new flavours and character as it matures in a bottle. Each release or expedition is vintage dated, and they're suggesting you collect your own. And obviously you can age this like you do a fine wine. And we actually had a tweet from one of our American listeners before we recorded tonight's show who said he's been aging a bottle of this for 3 years now.
Wow.
So, and he's had it before, and we were in for a real treat tonight in terms of this beer.
Yeah, this is the 2013 bottle that we've got, isn't it?
This is, yeah.
So it's this year's vintage.
Definitely. I think as it gets older, it would develop a sort of... Because right now, the 2013 to me doesn't really taste like a barley wine. I know that sounds... obviously it's called Sierra Nevada Bigfoot barley wine, but it tastes more like a double or imperial IPA because it's so hoppy. It's completely nothing like a traditional British-style barley wine. They're much more... The hops are a lot more subdued in them, so I think after a few years of aging one of these, the hops would calm down a bit, and it would be a lot maybe easier to drink, like a little bit smoother.
Yeah. Well, I'm really getting that booziness now.
It's certainly not one that you're gonna rush, Mark.
No,
this isn't.
well,
no. Don't be necking it like you normally do the 9% plus beers.
I'm only halfway through.
No, I think I'd probably agree with what Mark said there. I think the most I've ever aged a barley wine is about 2 months. And that probably isn't doing it justice because
it's not really aging it, is it? We've had this one 2 months.
It is. Come on.
That's not aging. That's just not getting around to it. Steve.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because the only other barley wine we've done on the show, we did the Adnams Tally Ho, which is considered a barley wine, and that had a completely different flavour to this. It was much more English in its tastes and its flavours. I've got a bottle of Strongman, the Magic Rock Strongman, which I've got upstairs, which I've been battling with in terms of, do I age it, do I drink it, what do I do with it? And a few people have suggested to me to age it a little bit. And when I was up at Magic Rock, I actually said to Rich, would you suggest aging it? And he was like, no. He was like, its flavours are only going to change ever so subtly that you wouldn't notice it enough to actually age it yet. So I've decided I'm now doing Strongman at Christmas as a result of that, because I have no patience to wait for it to age. And I think these beers where you're supposed to age them, I think in the future I'm going to have to buy two, one to drink and one to age, because I don't have the patience to wait for them.
Well, if you're buying double the beer, buy them from the beer boutique.
Nice advert there.
Calm down, guys.
I mean, we do in a few weeks. We're going to be doing the Fuller's vintage from last year, and I've been aging that for a year. Am I is that aging? Am I allowed to say that I've aged something for a year?
Yeah, you can get away with that, I guess. A year's
okay.
better
So
than let's put it that way.
I'm just checking mine. It wouldn't have gone off, would it? That vintage?
No. Probably.
no, it's got no sell by on it.
We've got the best before the
best
end of
before on it.
2015.
That's just a guide, though. That you
Yeah.
can have them a lot longer after that, I would imagine.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I will. In the cellar of the beer boutique, we have in a little dark corner. There is a lot of beer that's just been sat there for about 2 years now, including a little bit of West Veletrin, a little bit of Roquefort 8 Trappist beer, and Sam Smith's Stingo barley wine. And one of the things I really want to do is get one of the older bottles and one of the newer bottles and do a blind tasting and see if people can tell the difference between them, And it would be quite an interesting evening to do something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Well, let us know if you are doing that, Mark, and we'll try and come along and do it and maybe feature it on a show.
Yeah, sounds good. Definitely. Well, I mean, it'll probably be towards Christmas that we do it because we've had these beers just sat in the cellar for so long, and like the West Veletrin, we're not even allowed to sell that. It's kind of against the law to sell it. So, or
why is it against the law?
Well, not against the law. It's against the brewery's law. You're really not. They make you sign a little disclaimer, I think, when you buy a case of it, that you will not sell it on. You can give a bottle away, but you can't sell it.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, the 23 bottles that we've got left, or 22 bottles or something, they've got to be drunk by us, basically. So we may as well do something interesting with them. Definitely.
Bottles of beer that you're just waiting to give away. I'm
Hi, my name's Mark, and this is Stephen. Pleased to meet you. Oh, this beer is kind of... That hoppiness really sneaks up on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's getting a real bitterness to it now as it's beginning to warm a little in the glass. It's certainly getting a lot more bitter on the aftertaste than initially.
I
Yeah.
find it about halfway in between though, because the aroma of it is so chock full of sweetness and caramel, and the first taste is all sweetness for me as well. But about halfway through swallowing it, then it becomes hoppy, and that's why it's quite clever. It's quite balanced in that way, and it's an interesting. If it was all caramel or all malts, or all hops and all citrus, then it'd be kind of unbalanced and weird. But it works. It works as a kind of combo for me.
Yeah, a few sips ago, after I'd swallowed, and suddenly this hoppiness kind of reared its head and kicked me in the back of the teeth. It was like a really surprising hoppiness after what was initially just like this treacly, boozy, sweet, red beer.
I do feel as I've got just a bitter coating across the top of my mouth now. That just it's just sat there. It's just sat lingering. And I'm not entirely sure of whether it's pleasant or not. It's maybe a little bit too bitter. It feels like it's drying out my mouth.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of mouth puckering bitterness.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I get that too. But I think that's the key with this. I mean, with the aging thing, what we were talking about before is, I think as long as if you left the bottle for a year, that wouldn't happen as much. You know, that whole lingering mouth drying bitterness would probably just mellow out slightly, and you might enjoy it a little bit more. Obviously, that's not. You know, no one likes to have their mouth completely taken over with hops for the rest of the evening, do they?
No.
It's not something I enjoy anyway. If you're gonna have a bottle of this, then have it as the last beer of the night, definitely, or it'll ruin your palate for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just reading the notes again that I printed out earlier, and they were saying that over time the gradual oxidation changes the flavours of the beer, and will add notes of sherry or port wine, and will smooth out the harsher alcohol flavours. So you know, there's probably a good case for aging this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Be interesting to if anybody's listening to this that have done earlier incarnations of the beer from years back to give us a shout and let us know what they thought of it. I think to see if it did kind of mellow and smooth out a little bit over time.
Indeedy. Mark, before we finish up with the beer, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the beer boutique? You said that you're based in Putney.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started around about 2 years ago now, just as a project of two friends who they kind of bonded over beer again in Belgium, and you know, the owner Mark, he's a Belgian chap, and his friend Eddie is from Australia, and they got together and decided to start a beer shop, really, with the intention of eventually, you know, becoming a supplier and you know, providing a service to people. So not just selling people beer, but you know, trying to, it sounds a bit kind of patronizing, but trying to educate people a little bit about beer as well, which I think our customers tend to, you know, they quite appreciate that, especially when you give them a free tasting of Sierra Nevada Bigfoot as they walk in the door. It's quite a nice sort of treat. And we've got about, you know, in the shop there's about 400 beers now.
Wow.
It's really jumped up a lot in the last sort of year or so. Lots and lots of UK, lots and lots of American beer, but also we import from Belgium. You know, we've got a good range of German beers, and then little bits and bats dotted around like Japan and Denmark, Australia, New Zealand. You know.
As an Aussie, what Australian beers do you have?
Currently, we have Little Creatures Pale Ale, which is pretty kind of a popular one, really, not just with our customers, but also with like London on-trade. You know, it's pretty much in everyone's fridge. Cooper's Pale,
Yep.
Cooper's Sparkling, and in the past we've had James Bogue Lager, which, yeah, you can sort of, I can drink it, but I'm not that bothered about it. It's quite tricky with Australian beer because not a huge amount of it makes it over here in bulk. So for us to get a hand on it, you know, it's not the easiest. It would be nice to go to Australia and try some at a brewery, you know, because I know there are lots of great Australian microbreweries. It's just no one goes to Australia to bring them over here. It's
Well,
time to kill you.
There's Coopers you can get in various different places. The Sparkling is a lovely beer.
Yeah, and they've always got like the yeast left in the bottom. The sediment is always kind of there, and makes it very, very cloudy. And I don't know, it feels. It's actually, I quite like Coopers. We did a thing called the Beer Ashes earlier this year while the actual Ashes were on, and it was a blind tasting. So we poured everyone beer and just made them vote for their favourite out of two. So we get 2 pale ales, one from Australia, one from the UK, and make people vote on their best. And unfortunately for the UK, Australia won on that occasion,
Woo!
taking down some seriously good beer from Weird Beard, from Dark Star, which is just criminal, really. So yeah, we were a little bit gutted as Englishmen in the shop, but the people spoke, so
There you go. Says it all, really.
So now you're Australian.
Now I'm Australian.
Yeah.
Make the best beer in the world, mate. I can't do an Australian accent anymore. Right.
You can't do a Scottish accent either, but it doesn't stop you.
Okay, then what you're talking about?
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Very
Amazing.
good.
Thank you. Stephen, do you have any final words to say about the Bigfoot Ale? Because I've finished mine.
No, I'm finished mine. I've still got that lingering bitterness, and that's all I seem to have now. The sweeter flavours seem to have completely disappeared. It's a decent enough beer, but I think in hindsight, even though we've had this since the summer, 3 or 4 months isn't enough time to age a barley wine to allow it to smooth out a little. So I think it probably would have benefited from a little bit more aging.
How many bottle caps out of 5?
As it is now, I probably couldn't go more than a 3.5. I think, given time, I think it would develop into a really lovely beer.
Yeah. 3.5 for me as well. I found it very nice, very strong. The hoppiness really snuck up on you. And it had, from the initial tasting, that really nice, full mouthfeel. And slightly sticky. It was quite enjoyable at the beginning, but by the end, that bitterness really comes through and kind of spoiled it for me a little bit. But otherwise, very fine beer. What about you, Mark? You've been drinking this all day, you said. I'm assuming you like it.
Maybe it's because I've been drinking it all day. But I would give it 4.5 quite easily, just because it isn't really a classic barley wine in any way. It's an American barley wine, but for me, it's just like a really hoppy imperial IPA, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. There's a really good balance between caramel and bitterness. You get all the sort of lovely sweet toffee-like flavors, and then also that sort of whacking great pine thing. And then, at the back you've got loads of alcohol, which always goes down nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, 4.5 definitely out of 5. I really like this beer.
Great. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Mark. It's been a pleasure to have you along.
Cool, thank you guys.
People can find you online at marksoutofbeer.blogspot.co.uk. That's where your blog is.
Okay.
On Twitter, you're at Berrybeak.
That's right.
And how can they find the Beer Boutique, which is the shop you're in at the moment?
Well, I would say definitely search Google the Beer Boutique, and that would bring up the website pretty quickly. But also at the Beer Boutique on Twitter and Facebook / the Beer Boutique. We have an online shop, so.
And you're in Putney.
And we're in Putney, yeah, of course. So if you want to get off at East Putney Tube, you can see us from the tube. So, and we have tables and chairs, and you can sit here and drink beer.
Wow.
And listen to terrible music that I pick.
Well, I'm gonna have to make a visit, I think. So I might see you soon enough. You never know.
Yeah, please.
Even I'm going to have to venture into to South London territory because I think I'll just be like a kid in a sweet shop
South of the
with
river.
400 beers to choose from.
Make sure you take someone to look after you, Steve, if you're going south.
You're looking after me.
Yeah.
I'm staying at yours.
I'm proper South London, I am. You can find us on Twitter at Beer O'Clock Show, and the website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Stephen, as always, mate.
It's the highlight of my week, as always. Just one final thing to add before we go.
Yeah.
Our next live event coming up Saturday the 14th of December,
Crimbo
the
Crawl.
Crimbo Crawl. through London. I'm off this Thursday evening, so when you listen to this, it would have been last night. I'm off out with a random bloke from Twitter to do a walkthrough of the route for educational research purposes and nothing else.
No.
So be able to report back a little bit more on what you can expect from the Grimbo Crawl next week.
Very good, and we'll be taking bookings for that soon enough. It will be free, but we're just taking expressions of interest and all that kind of crap. So look for that soon enough, as soon as I pull my finger out and set something up. What do we have?
I'm going to keep reminding you every week until you do it.
What are we drinking next week?
I believe we're doing the Anchor Steam Beer
Ah, very good, very
next
good.
week. Which is kind of an American, fits in with our whole American theme, but is a little bit of a supermarket staple because you can pick it up in a fair few places.
You can get it in Whole Foods. That's where I always get my Anchor Steam beer.
Yeah.
Because I'm very posh. Oh, the South London sirens.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're coming to take you boys away, I think.
Yeah, that's the Putney. Yeah, the Putney mob are out in force again.
Right, that's it. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
Steve, I'll
Thank
talk to you next week.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.